Revealed, the incredible twist on a blind date where the true identity changed everything forever. Sarah stood by the kitchen sink, hands submerged in soapy water, staring out at the familiar chaos of the bustling Midwestern town. Her mind raced as she scrubbed the same spot on a plate, the steam from the hot water mingling with her anxiety. Tomorrow was the big day, the blind date her sister had insisted she go on. Would she really be able to put herself out there again? Barely making ends meet with 2 jobs, she felt like each breath was weighed down by bills and fatigue. Dating felt like a cruel joke, a luxury she couldn't afford. The weight of responsibility had shaped her into a cautious woman, and the prospect of vulnerability sent an uncomfortable wave of unease crashing over her. She was a single mother, fiercely protective of her 16-year-old son, Jason, whose challenges loomed over her like impending storms. Could she abandon her post at the lookout, or was she destined to remain shackled to the memories of her father's struggles and the fear of repeating them with a stranger? She paused, contemplating her father's legacy, the mechanic who dedicated his life to a job that was never acknowledged. The stories of unfulfilled dreams stirred something deep inside, locking her in a dilemma: to step into the unknown or cling to the safety of pain. Would she dare risk her heart again, especially now, when every penny was accounted for? Tension coiled tightly around her chest. She felt like a worn-out rubber band, stretched and ready to snap. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Leaving the dinner dishes unattended, Sarah glanced at the clock, her pulse quickening at the thought of the date. What if it turned into another awkward evening, just another reminder of the life she couldn't escape? But something shifted deep within her. What if laughter was waiting on the other side? What if Tom could see the woman beneath the weight of the world? For a brief moment there was hope. Yet, it sat faint, a flickering candle against the wind. At the cafe, that hope began to fracture with every passing moment of silence. Tom sat across from her, seemingly at ease with his casual wit and thoughtful demeanor. Yet there was a cloud of uncertainty hanging thick in the air. Seconds turned to minutes, laughter echoed but felt muted. All shared struggles pinched at her heart, his stories about classroom demands, her rush between jobs. Then came that dangerous moment when they discussed family heritages. What had felt like an innocent conversation suddenly unraveled into a taut thread of revelation. Tom's laughter faded as he mentioned his father's firm, her father's nightmare, a company that had taken from him his very spirit. Sarah's chest tightened. Her mind raced back to memories that cut deeper than any knife, her father's weary face filled with despair, a man trapped by circumstances unchanging. The world spun, anger bubbling just beneath her skin. How could this happen? Just as she dared to hope for connection, her heart pulled back, locking her down in familiar doubts and shadows of resentment. Determined not to reveal how this shattered her, she stared at him through narrowed eyes, searching for clues in his expression. Caught in this storm of emotions, she couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Was this irony? A cruel twist of fate? Or a challenge to find forgiveness where no warmth existed? Sarah thought of Jason and all she had fought for. Could she dismantle the walls she built for her father's sake? The road ahead felt fogged, blocking any possible outcome. Tension coiled tighter in the air, binding both their hearts in a moment filled with profound uncertainty. And as Sarah's defenses threatened to rise once more, Tom reached out, his vulnerability reflected in his gaze. She could sense he had his own secrets. The question loomed between them: could he make amends for a legacy stained by his father? Could love be powerful enough to bridge this divide? Sarah's heart raced, caught between the impulse to flee and the desire to lean in. The cafe around them faded into a blur, a mere backdrop to the turmoil that brewed in her mind. Tom's outstretched hand was tentative, yet it ignited something deep within her, a spark of curiosity and fear, a possible bridge spanning the chasm that had formed between their families. Melissa's insistence that Sarah give herself a chance echoed in her thoughts. Perhaps this moment, unwelcome as it was, could indeed lead to growth. Could she truly assess the man before her without the burden of his father's choices weighing her down? She inhaled deeply, steadying her breath like a warrior readying for battle. "Your father's firm presumed a lot about people," she finally said, her voice quivering slightly. "Took more than it ever gave. But maybe he isn't the one we should be judging." The words felt foreign leaving her lips, burdened with the scars of resentment, and the ghosts of her father's struggles. Would forgiving Tom grant her freedom from her own shackles? Tom's expression shifted, a mix of relief and confusion. "I've always felt overshadowed by my father's ambitions," he admitted. "There's always been a sense of expectation that I would carry on his legacy. But that's not me." He dropped his gaze, revealing the inner conflict he battled. For the first time, Sarah felt as if she were seeing the man who sat before her not just the embodiment of a complicated familial inheritance. This vulnerable sign made her question her own preparedness to build anything resembling a relationship. Could she trust herself to navigate the hazards of heartache once more? She recalled her father's lessons. "What I learned from my dad's struggles was resilience," she said softly, "but also the unrelenting need to break cycles. I don't want Jason to feel stuck like he did." Emotion lodged in her throat as she spoke, a thread of determination weaving its way through the despair. Tom nodded, as if grappling with the weight of his own revelations. "I don't want to be judged for something I didn't choose either. I want to find my own way, away from all that." The conversation took on a rhythm, a back-and-forth dance revealing not just vulnerabilities but hints of shared aspirations. In this moment of connection, Sarah realized that both their narratives could unfurl towards healing rather than heartbreak. But a sudden jolt of reality framed her thoughts. Could she truly step into a relationship with someone whose past felt forever intertwined with her own pain? Reconstructing her understanding of trust felt monumental, especially when every instinct urged her towards self-preservation. In that fearful second, she instinctively drew back, her pulse quickening at the uncertainty looming ahead. "I just don't know if I'm ready," she whispered, feeling the weight of her words settle over them. It was simpler to dismantle the walls she had built than to engage with them head-on. Tom's eyes searched hers, a mix of understanding and hesitation mirroring her turmoil. "I can't change who my family is, but I want to change who I am to you, and to myself," he said, solid yet vulnerable. A tender resoluteness resonated, but amid their shared honesty lingered the tension of unspoken possibilities. As they lingered in this emotional limbo, Sarah felt the urge to retreat into the familiar comfort of her self-imposed retreat until a fleeting thought stopped her. Perhaps personal development lay not in avoidance, but in engagement. With a gentle exhale, she resolved to face the shadows instead of escaping them. And just as she prepared to voice her honesty aloud, a waiter arrived with their forgotten coffees, an interruption that scoffed at her emerging courage. "Maybe we should just start simply," she managed, sealing a quiet pact within. But even as her mind spun in circles of renewed purpose, doubt haunted her heart. The edges of this new path were blurred, tangled in uncertainties yet unseen. Little did Sarah know, as she took a careful sip, that an unexpected confrontation would soon challenge everything she had just begun to embrace, a moment that would test her resolve, her heart, and the very foundation of her emerging connection with Tom. Would she be able to navigate the impending crash of ideals that lay ahead? The clattering of cups and the soft murmur of nearby conversations wrapped around Sarah like a cocoon, but did little to shield her from the growing anxiety within. The warmth of her coffee held no comfort as her thoughts spiraled, fixated on the real implications of engaging with Tom. As they sipped in silence, Sarah's resolve began to falter. She had just committed to a path of vulnerability, yet the stark reality loomed: how could she forge a connection with someone carrying the weight of a legacy she had spent years trying to step away from? The specter of her father's failures hovered in the corners of her mind, riding shotgun beside the budding curiosity she felt toward Tom. Change takes time, she reminded herself, a mantra that felt ineffective against her rising dread. But beneath that trepidation flickered a tiny flame. What if stepping into this uncertainty offered the growth she desperately craved? Could she break free from the chains tying her to the past? She watched Tom as he sat with a furrowed brow, seemingly mulling over his own thoughts with the weight of unarticulated struggles written all over his face. In that moment, Sarah recognized his hesitation mirrored her own. He was not just Tom Franks, the son of a powerful man. He was a person fighting against expectation, a fighter much like herself. And in that recognition, a simple idea began to blossom. Perhaps they could be allies in this fight for authenticity. "I wish I could tell you I'm all in," she said, finding her voice between the drafts of uncertainty swirling around them. "But trusting is hard for me. I've seen how much damage a name can carry." The admission felt both terrifying and liberating, the air around her shifting as she spoke the truth. Tom met her gaze, unwavering. "I know I can't erase what my father represents for you. But I want to show you who I am beneath the weight of that legacy." His sincerity washed over her, stirring a longing she scarcely dared acknowledge. As the tension hovered, she contemplated the temptations of their shared vulnerability. A thought struck her: could she shift her narrative from victimization to empowerment? Instead of cringing at the burden of their shared histories, could she embrace the possibility to craft something new together? But before she could speak her mind, the cafe doors swung open violently, slamming against the wall, drawing their attention. A man in a tailored suit strode in, his demeanor commanding as he scanned the patrons. It took only a moment for Sarah to recognize him: Mark, her ex-boyfriend. The memories of their toxic past surged back, mixing with her resolve, threatening to undo everything she had just mustered. Mark's eyes locked onto hers, a smirk twisting his lips. "Sarah," he called out, his voice dripping with faux cheerfulness. "Fancy running into you here. And with the Franks? This is a surprise." The weight of his words hung heavily, a taunt veiling his true intentions. Tom tensed beside her, sensing the shift in Sarah's body language. Every instinct screamed at her to retreat, to pull away from the interloper whose presence threatened to expose her vulnerabilities and cast shadows over the fragile connection she had only begun to forge. "Just grabbing coffee," she replied stiffly, her mind racing to navigate the impending confrontation. Would she stand firmly on the ground she had just claimed, or allow Mark's undermining presence to unravel her hard-fought resolve? "Looks like your taste has changed much," Mark quipped, smirking knowingly. Still drawn to the complicated types. Ambushed by a wave of anger laced with fear, Sarah felt her heart race. This was it, the moment of truth. Would she allow herself to be defined by past failures, or would she reclaim her narrative? With a burst of determination, Sarah straightened her posture, taking a deep breath to steady her voice. "Mark, this is really not the time or place. I'm here to converse, not to revisit old stories." Tom turned slightly towards her, recognition flooding his expression as he understood the significance of Sarah's stand. A flicker of something resembling hope ignited within her. She could confront the remnants of her past, she could reclaim her agency, even in this tangled moment. As tension crackled in the air, Sarah knew this confrontation could either cement her newfound path or send her spiraling backward. And in that charged silence, amid the public scrutiny, a thought echoed within her: how could she possibly prepare for a future she had barely begun to define while the specters of her past loomed over her shoulder, ready to crash the very foundations she was trying to build? The answers sat just out of reach, tangled with the impending battle she dared not shy away from. Would she remain steadfast in her newfound courage, or would the shadows of her past pull her back into the darkness? The smirk on Mark's face faded as he took a step toward her, fresh contempt painted across his features. The air around them thickened, and Sarah could feel the eyes of the cafe shifting, the barista momentarily pausing their routine as they caught sight of the brewing conflict. She was no longer just a woman with coffee, she became a player in a drama that threatened to unravel at any moment. "Are you really going to let him?" Mark began, his voice laced with the familiar condescension that once suffocated her. "No," Sarah interrupted, her voice steady but heart-pounding. "I'm not having this conversation with you. Not now. Not ever." Her words surged forth, bold and decisive, displacing the shadow of doubt. Sarah could feel Tom's presence beside her, a supportive anchor even amidst the brewing storm. This was the realization she had long craved. She possessed the power to rewrite her narrative, to weave a tapestry of independence and resolve rather than one etched with the marks of her past. Mark's face contorted with disbelief, as if grappling with the realization that Sarah was no longer the girl he could easily manipulate. "What happened to you?" he sneered. "I see you found a new plaything to hide behind." "Don't you dare talk about him," Sarah shot back, the heat of her anger fueling her confidence. "This isn't about you or me. It's about shaking off the ghosts of the past and moving forward." She felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins, igniting an engine of determination she hadn't tapped into for years. Could it be that she was finally drawing lines in the sand? "And here I thought you'd never gather the courage to stand up to someone who knows you too well," Mark taunted, but his voice lacked the bite it once had, revealing uncertainty beneath the bravado. "That's the difference," she countered, her heart racing with exhilaration. "I know who I am now. I'm not ashamed of my past, but I refuse to let it dictate my future." Tom's gaze shifted to Sarah with newfound respect, the unspoken understanding swelling between them. She hadn't just defended herself, she had embraced growth, taking the reins of her life in a way that felt liberating. An unfamiliar energy radiated from within as she made the bold decision not only to confront her past but to readjust her compass toward the future. "Some scars can't be erased, Mark, but I'll be damned if I let them define me," she added, feeling her resolve solidify. "Not to you, and not to anyone else." His reaction was palpable. Any feigned bravado splintered, revealing a soft underbelly of vulnerability, a glimpse of the boy who once prided himself on molding her. "You think you can just walk away?" he spat, but she noticed the wavering in his voice, the vulnerability she had, for too long, yielded to. "You underestimate me," she said, the words firm on her lips. With that, she turned slightly to Tom, who remained a silent supporter. "I'm done playing someone else's script." For the first time in years, she felt an embrace of clarity, her voice wielding power. She could craft her destiny and disengage from the entangled relationship with Mark that had drained her spirit for too long. As Sarah felt the walls of her past starting to crumble, a thought stirred deep within her. If she could confront Mark, what other fears could she face head-on? With an unwavering gaze, she turned back to Mark, the remnants of her resolve coalescing into a single conviction. "This conversation is over." As she finished speaking, a strange calmness descended upon her. She could see the path branching before her, the pathway of potential unfurling with new possibilities, away from the specters of doubt. Yet, in her heart, a lingering question remained. What would it truly mean to stand alone, fully equipped to shape her life moving forward? That prospect ignited a flicker of both excitement and fear, suggesting this was merely the beginning of her confronting unresolved challenges. With every beat of silence between them, Sarah recognized that this moment was pivotal, not only marking an end but also a bold proclamation of her autonomy. But the unsettling musings about where that autonomy could lead her gnawed in the back of her mind. Would confronting her past make the journey toward a clearer future easier, or would it serve to obfuscate the path ahead? A moment passed before she could decide her next move, and as Tom's warm presence lingered, new opportunities flickered in her mind. As she locked eyes with him, a sudden realization dawned. The past she fought so hard to reclaim had led her here, but what awaited her on this fresh journey was yet to be uncovered. And that haunting question thrummed in the air: if she could reclaim this victory, what other battles lay hidden, waiting to be confronted? As silence enveloped the cafe, Sarah's heart pounded against her ribs, the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. The tension with Mark was now palpable, a line drawn in the sand that separated her past from her evolving future. She couldn't linger in that moment, nor could she allow uncertainty to creep back in. The path ahead, although uncharted, sparked a tentative sense of hope. Turning her back on Mark felt like shedding a skin, but the unfamiliar sensation of empowerment weighed heavy, flickering between exhilaration and anxiety. Had she truly left him behind, or would he find a way to invade her newfound autonomy? Gathering her thoughts, Sarah focused on Tom, who stood resolutely beside her, their connection solidifying with each shared breath. "Let us grab some fresh air," she suggested, desperate to escape the stifling atmosphere around them. Tom nodded, an understanding smile breaking through the tension, and they stepped outside into the cool breeze. The cafe's din transformed into muffled background noise as they found solace on the sidewalk, the sun beginning to dip beyond the skyline, casting a warm golden hue. "Sarah, that was incredible," he said, genuine admiration dancing in his eyes. "I've never seen anyone stand up to him like that." His praise ignited a spark of pride within her. It's so easy to fall back into old habits, to let someone else control the narrative." The vulnerability hovered in her tone, revealing the internal struggle that simmered just below the surface. Tom tilted his head, his expression softening. "But you didn't this time. What you did back there, it's a big step. You're not defined by your past anymore." His words triggered a break in her emotional dam. I know that, but there is still so much I haven't tackled. So many fears. What if he comes back with something worse? Or what if I can't keep this up?" Tom took a step closer, his presence grounding her chaotic thoughts. "Then we tackle it together. You've changed, but so have I. You're not alone in this fight." She took a moment to absorb his words, feeling the weight of their reality. The support she had sought her entire life had arrived in the unlikeliest forms: a blind date, a growing friendship. It was as if she had been wandering in a fog, and suddenly, a clear path emerged. But could she maintain her footing on this path of independence? As they talked, Sarah's mind flitted back to the confrontation with Mark. It felt momentous, yet uncharted territory lay ahead. The exhilaration of taking control tugged at her, but unhealed wounds from her past still festered, threatening to compromise her advancements. Time slithered by as they shared stories, dreams, and insecurities, carrying them deeper into newfound companionship. Yet, each narrative was laced with unanswered questions, the specter of doubts about her readiness hovering like a shadow. Eventually, as night fell, Sarah paused, observing the stars illuminating the vast sky, a stark contrast to her often clouded mind. "You know, I feel different. I think I'm ready to explore, to take chances. This feels like a turning point for me." "I'm glad to hear that," Tom replied, his smile broadening, but the seriousness of his gaze reminded her of the vulnerability entwined with that journey. Reflecting within, Sarah grasped the importance of understanding her limitations, her apprehensions, and the strength they offered. The concept of exploring her potential, of opening herself up to the unknown, sparked a blend of eagerness and fear. If standing up to Mark had been one confrontation, how many more lay ahead before she could fully claim her identity? Questions emerged like swirling dust in her mind. Could she continue to step out from the shadows, or would the past come to haunt her, demanding an audience once more? Just then, her phone buzzed in her pocket, snapping her thoughts back to the present. She glanced at the screen and saw an ominous message from an unknown number. The words threatened to shake the foundation she had just begun to build. "You should be careful about who you trust, Sarah. I haven't forgotten you." Sarah's breath hitched. The weight of her choices settled heavily on her shoulders. The next chapter of her journey beckoned, a confrontation she hadn't anticipated but was now unavoidable. What lay ahead, however, could either consolidate her newfound strength or unravel everything she had fought to reclaim. The cool night air wrapped around Sarah like a shroud, each breath a reminder of the fragile line she teetered upon. The message burned in her hand, the screen a stark white against the deepening dusk. Fear and determination warred within her. The comforting warmth shared with Tom felt distant now, overshadowed by echoes of a past she fought so hard to escape. Yet there was something about this moment, a realization that she could control the narrative, an idea that surged forward, igniting her resolve. "Who is it from?" Tom asked, leaning closer, concern etching his features. "I don't know," she replied, trying to muster a steady voice. "An unknown number. I've never given my contact details to anyone outside our group. This feels targeted." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. The thrill of empowerment she'd felt earlier began to chill, replaced by the creeping tendrils of doubt. Had she really moved on, Or was this just a new round of the same exhausting game? What do you want to do? Tom's voice was steady, but she could hear the protective undertone. His support felt like a lifebuoy amidst the stormy sea of her anxieties. I want to confront this, Sarah said, surprising herself with the clarity of her thoughts. I want to know who's behind this. Determination coalesced with her fear, merging into a singularity of focus. She couldn't shrink back now. Not after all the risks she had taken and the strength she had started to feel. Are you sure? Tom's brow furrowed, concern blossoming in his eyes. What if it's dangerous? His caution made her pause, the ghosts of her past echoing in the back of her mind, old instincts whispering to retreat. But then she recalled her conversation with Mark. The promises she made herself when she walked out of that cafe. She felt a flicker of anger. No more would she allow someone else's threats to dictate her reality. It's time to take control, Tom. Her words rang with newfound resolve. I can't live in fear. Tom nodded slowly, admiration sparking through his hesitation. All right, then let us find out who this is together. They moved further from the cafe, heading to a quieter section of the street illuminated by soft lamplight. Sarah composed herself, sitting on a bench as she began to think strategically, an internal exercise she had rehearsed numerous times in her mind but never embraced due to crippling self-doubt. Who would have the audacity to reach out after everything? Should she involve the authorities? Suddenly, in a moment of clarity, she remembered her job at the communications agency. What if I track the number? I might be able to get some information legally, of course, she suggested, inspired by the knowledge that had previously just felt theoretical. Tom smiled, buoying her determination. Great idea. We'll start there. Keep it professional. If they're threatening, we'll go from there. Just as she was about to pull up her contacts, her phone buzzed again, startling her. It was another message, this one more succinct. You can run, but you can't hide. Cold sweat trickled down her spine, but instead of succumbing to fear, anger ignited her spirit. She glanced sideways at Tom, whose expression now reflected the gravity of the situation. This isn't just a game anymore. It's serious. Then let us make it serious, he replied, voice steeled. We will face whatever this is head on. But first, let us gather our resources. The hum of adrenaline fused with the fresh resolve she felt to take bold steps forward. As they left the park, a sudden clarity enveloped her. The confrontation she sought wasn't just about Mark or this obscure number. It was a confrontation with her former self, the timid woman who allowed the actions of others to dictate her sense of self-worth. In that moment, she vowed to uncover the truth, not just about the message but about her own potential to confront and obliterate those chains binding her to the past. Just then, another message pinged on her phone. This one held the potential to break the very foundation of her recent advances. I know your weakness, Sarah. And I will use it. The weight of her journey loomed larger than ever. What was her weakness, and could she withstand the coming storm? The next decisive steps awaited, each moment tinged with the electric fear of the unknown. The urban landscape buzzed with the sporadic rhythm of life as Sarah and Tom retraced their steps toward the communications agency. Her heart thundered in her chest, echoing the duality of fear and empowerment that coursed through her veins. The messages felt like a taunting reminder that her carefully rebuilt life was still precariously tethered to shadows of uncertainty. Each message nudged her deeper into a confrontational mindset. She had spent far too long avoiding uncomfortable truths, sidelined by her own fears. The grittiness of her past lurked dangerously close, gnawing at the edges of her resolve. But it was this very moment, the moment of choice, that defined her. As they entered the agency, a small office with white walls adorned by dizzying charts and dynamic photos, Sarah felt the familiar swirl of adrenaline. Each workstation was a sentinel, witnessing the intricate dance between chaos and clarity that characterized her daily grind. Let us start with what we have, Tom encouraged, his presence a steady anchor amid her rising anxiety. She took a breath, centering her focus. With practiced familiarity, Sarah pulled up her computer and logged in. The screen lit up, providing a comforting glow that stood in stark contrast to the menacing words she had just received. This was her domain: information, insight, and strategy. It was time to leverage her skills. Okay, let us see if there are any public resources we can access, she instructed, her fingers dancing across the keyboard. The query for the unknown number carried an urgency she hadn't felt in years. Each click pulled her closer to potential truths hidden behind digital walls. She focused, pushing aside distractions of self-doubt and shifting memories. Time bled away as she sifted through databases, filtering through potential leads. The dull glow of the monitor felt like her lifeline, but each moment that passed without revelation gnawed at her confidence, each tick of the clock bombarding her with the weight of her own ambition. Who was this person? What did they want? Then, the search yielded a flicker of information. A match. An old acquaintance of her past. Jay. The name resonated through her mind like a bell tolling ominously at night. The pang of nostalgia was swiftly overshadowed by fury. Jay had been an accomplice, a name whispered in dark corners when she had been ensnared in a web of manipulation. What did you find? Tom's voice pulled her from her thoughts, the urgency palpable in his tone. Jay. Just saying the name pulled back layers of fear and anger she had long since buried. He.S. linked to that number. The backstory flooded her mind like a rush of ice water. Jay had once been a part of her life, an entanglement she was desperate to forget. They had shared laughter, secrets, and then a swift betrayal she had never properly confronted. He'd toyed with her sense of safety, distorted her perception of herself. Tom picked up on her silence, a worried crease forming on his brow. Are you okay? I thought I was done with him. The realization hit hard, slicing through the layers of progress she believed she made. But he's not done with me. A breath caught in her throat, but amidst the spike of panic, steely resolve began to crystallize. She wasn't that timid woman anymore. This time, she had the tools, the knowledge, and a support system that would not allow her to falter. The weight of the past felt lighter, and the idea of confronting Jay as both an adversary and a reflection of her former self flickered with a surprising thrill. Sarah, Tom said, drawing her attention back to the task at hand. What's our next move? The question hung heavily, but for the first time, she felt command over her path. We find him. We confront him, and we draw the line. Facing Jay would require more than confrontation. It demanded clarity of purpose and strength of character. She already felt the conflict brewing within her, a desire to confront the past and a burning need to protect those she cared about. Before she could focus, her phone buzzed again, the screen lighting up with yet another message. This one dripped with a malicious glee. I've already taken your weakness into account, Sarah. Prepare to suffer. That gnawing feeling circled back, a tangible reminder of vulnerabilities yet to be addressed. But alongside it, a flicker of determination ignited within her. In this battle, she was not defending her past, she was redefining her future. Let us find Jay, she said, her voice steady, the words spilling like a promise. As she locked eyes with Tom, the resolve between them cemented a bond forged in purpose. The night was drawing closer, and Sarah stood poised to confront the storm that awaited her. As they stepped out of the office, a challenge loomed ahead, a reckoning that would test not only her fears but the very core of her identity. But could she truly face the foe that represented her past, and, in doing so, reclaim her present? The answer remained just out of reach, but she was determined to find it, no matter the cost. The world outside seemed to dim as Sarah stepped into the street, her senses heightened. Each sound amplified: the rustle of leaves, the distant blare of a horn, the murmur of chatter from passers-by. With Tom by her side, she felt the electric hum of purpose filling the air, invigorating her with each stride. Those who walked by, unaware of the internal tempest brewing within her, became mere shadows against her growing resolve. Where do we start? Tom asked, his voice steady, a reminder that she had someone in her corner. We go to the last place I knew Jay frequented, Sarah replied, the weight of her memories tugging at her gut. The bar was a low-key dive known for darkened corners and whispered conversations, exactly where someone like Jay would feel comfortable lurking. As they approached the bar, memories flooded back: laughter, friends, but also the bitter tang of betrayal that had solidified her resolve to rise above her past. Walking through the door felt like crossing an invisible threshold, between the past that haunted her and the future she was ready to embrace. Inside, the dim lighting mirrored her thoughts. Tom instinctively stepped closer, providing an unspoken support she desperately needed. Sarah scanned the room, searching for a familiar face, the familiar trepidation returning as she recognized the ghosts of her past. It was no longer J.'s presence that frightened her but the remnants of her own naivety. "Stick close," she advised Tom, her voice a confident whisper amidst the background noise. The bar was alive but still felt suffocating, memories intertwining with the present. "Look over there," Tom said, nodding towards a heavily shadowed booth. Her heart raced as she saw the unmistakable silhouette of Jay, hunched over a drink, framed in the faint light. It was a sight that ignited both anger and a fierce determination within her. "Stay back," she instructed Tom, knowing this confrontation was one she had to face alone. The confidence she had cultivated over the years hesitated for a brief moment, yet it was precisely this moment of vulnerability that gave her strength. A simple exchange with Jay could either shatter her or solidify the foundation she was building. Taking a deep breath, she made her approach. Each step felt heavier but also liberating, fueled by the catalyzing promise of reclaiming her narrative. As she reached the edge of the booth, Jay looked up, his expression shifting from surprise to amusement. "Sarah," he drawled, feigning a nonchalance that felt painfully hollow. "It's been a while." "Too long," she shot back, her tone clipped but steady. A wave of firmness washed over her, pushing back anxieties that threatened to rise. He leaned back, a semblance of confidence plastered across his face. "What brings you here? I thought you left it all behind." "Things change," she replied, her voice unwavering. "You shouldn't have come back." With those words, a silent battle commenced, tension thickening like fog. Inside, she could feel her heart pounding, a mix of adrenaline and eagerness to confront not just him but the insecurities woven into her past life. Confrontation loomed like the haze, inviting her into its depths. "What do you want, Sarah? Nostalgia?" "I didn't think you were the type," he said dismissively, but there was a hint of uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "I want the truth," she responded, surprising herself with the clarity resonating in her statement. "What truth?" He smirked, but Sarah saw behind the bravado. His vulnerability appeared as the mask slipped. There was fear hidden behind his bravado, a crack where her determination to confront the past seeped through. "I want to know why you've decided to resurface now. Who sent you? What game are you playing?" she demanded, her voice growing stronger with each question, bolstered by the realization that her worth was not defined by former fears but by newfound strength. J.'s posture shifted, the bravado fading slightly. "You're not as naive as I once thought," he admitted, a flicker of respect mingling with ire. "Neither am I. I can't be your pawn any more," she declared, centering herself in the moment. The stakes were rising, and for the first time since entering, she felt the control lie firmly in her hands. His smile twisted into a grimace, and for a split second, Sarah saw the shadows of uncertainty cross his features. It was empowering. But before Jay could respond, the sudden buzz of her phone cut through their charged moment. She glanced down to see another message flash across the screen, chilling her blood. "You shouldn't have done this, Sarah. The past is not so easily buried." The confident facade shattered, and fear clawed back into her throat. There was something larger at play, and the implications of her confrontation echoed back to her. Confronting Jay opened a door she wasn't sure she was ready for. The urgency of the situation pressed against her chest like a vice, reminding her that her journey of self-discovery was only just beginning. "Are you ready for what comes next?" her mind questioned, the gravity of her choice looming larger than ever. As the tension between them thickened, uncertainty radiated. Did she have the power to take the reins? Or had she merely unveiled a rabbit hole leading toward even darker corners of her past? In this determined moment, only one thought anchored her: she was prepared to fight for her future, no matter how daunting the shadows waiting ahead might be. Would she stand to reclaim what was truly hers, Or would the ghosts of her past ensnare her once more? Sarah's fingers trembled slightly as she gripped her phone tighter. The words on the screen, laden with ominous undertones, acted like a cold wave washing over her. Beneath the simmering tension, she felt the familiar tug of fear merging with a steely resolve. This was a moment that demanded clarity, and she would refuse to let fear write her story. "Who sent you that?" Jay asked, his nonchalance cracking under the weight of the text. She could see his earlier bravado waning as he leaned closer, eyes narrowing with intrigue and concern. "Why do you care?" She shot back, surprising even herself with the edge in her tone. It was unfamiliar, this assertiveness, but exhilarating nonetheless. In this exchange, Sarah recognized the dormant strength within her, long shackled by doubt and insecurities. "Because you've stirred something up, and I want to know just how deep it runs," he replied, measuring his words, each one deliberately calculated. She was used to his slippery nature, but this was different. He seemed genuinely concerned. A rush of thoughts spiraled through her mind, each leading to a deeper question. Was Jay genuinely worried, or was this another ploy to regain control? As Sarah debated what to reveal, an unfamiliar sensation of empowerment surged within her. She realized she was no longer merely a passive participant in this game. Taking the risk, she leaned closer, narrowing the distance between them. "You think I can't handle the truth? How chaotic can the past be? You're the one who walked away, Jay." "Chaos doesn't even begin to describe it," he murmured, his expression shifting again, flickers of his old charm mingling with a hint of vulnerability that gave way to lingering doubts. "You really don't know who's watching? Who's waiting?" Sarah frowned, confusion wrapping around her thoughts. "What do you mean?" His gaze faltered momentarily as if he was teetering on the precipice of a dangerous confession. "You have no idea of the forces at play. I thought you were done with this life, ran away, left it all behind," he said, regret lacing his tone. "But here you are, playing with fire. What do you mean by forces?" She pressed, driven by an insatiable curiosity, and her transformation from uncertainty into action. Before he could respond, another vibration from her phone shattered the moment, another chilling reminder that her past had not settled easily. Heart racing, she briefly flicked her eyes down again. It felt like a heartbeat echoing through the bar, every sound amplifying the irrational fear creeping along her spine. "Sarah, you need to listen to me," Jay's voice became earnest, a desperate plea disguised as an order. "There are things you don't know yet about me, and about those you want to expect. If you're going to dive into this, you have to be prepared for the consequences." She pulled back slightly, breathing through the tumult. Prepared? Would she ever be? Each question clawed at her certainty, holding her in a state of contemplation that felt both stifling and illuminating. She met Jay's eyes, searching for something solid and anchor in this tempest. The connection between them cracked open old channels of memory. Time flickered tenuously, and the myriad of feelings within twisted together a potent mix of anger, betrayal, and unexpected yearning for clarity. "Then tell me," she commanded, every word fortified with intention. "If there are secrets, spill them. I can't navigate this darkness blind." His hesitation betrayed him, and she sensed he was weighing truths against the burden of their shared history. "You can barely fathom what you're asking," he warned solemnly, "but if you're insistent, we're in deeper waters than you want to explore." "Then let us explore together," she declared, her voice slicing through the haze. This wasn't just about Jay anymore. It was about recovering pieces of herself she thought she had quelled. The fight was morphing into something different, a revelation that change isn't found in distance but in confronting what has been buried. Just then, a commotion erupted from the bar's entrance, drawing the attention of patrons and punctuating their intense conversation. The noise heightened the urgency pressing between them, reminding Sarah that the shadows were not just behind her but closing in fast. "Sarah!" Tom's voice sliced through the noise, filled with worry. She turned toward him, momentarily distracted, a flood of determination compelling her to make a choice. Would she retreat from the uncertain revelations threatening to wash over her, or plunge deeper into the mysteries that urged her to confront the hounds of her past? What awaited her behind the veil of truth was a deeper understanding of herself, and perhaps even a confrontation with the unknown forces she was only just beginning to grasp. However, before clarity found her, the looming figure at the entrance caught her eye, sending another wave of unease through her. As recognition washed over her, she felt the gravity of her next decision. The quest for her truth was unfolding, and there was no turning back. What lay hidden behind this next door? She stepped forward, ready to meet it head-on, heart pounding with the thrill of anticipation. "Be careful," Jay whispered, but Sarah didn't need warning. She was ready to embrace whatever awaited her on the other side. Little did she know that the choice she made in this moment would prepare her for an even more harrowing confrontation. The clock was ticking. Would the truth of her past shatter her newfound strength, or cement it? The shadows stirred, urging her forward. As Sarah locked eyes with the figure now stepping through the bar's entrance, a chill ran down her spine. It was one she had not expected. The face of her past, her former boss and champion of toxic ambitions, Mark. With his dress shirt crisp and hair styled to perfection, he commanded the attention of the room, eyes sweeping over the crowd until they landed on her. "Sarah," he called, a veneer of charm coating each syllable, but she could hear the undercurrent of hostility beneath its surface. "What a surprise to see you here." And with Jay. Every muscle in her body tensed. Jay's presence receded beside her, a mere whisper of what had felt like a confrontation now overshadowed by a looming storm. "Do you want something, Mark?" she asked, the tremor in her voice betraying none of the strength she had fought to gather in recent days. She could feel Tom's anxious glance beside her, now on alert. Mark took a step closer, the subtle menace in his demeanor palpable. "I just thought it would be nice to catch up. You left so abruptly. Didn't even say goodbye." Her heart raced, battling waves of irritation and fear flooding her senses. This was not an old grudge from her past. It was a reminder of her earlier entrapment. Could she confront Mark without further unraveling her hard-fought resolve? "Right, well, I'm busy," she replied curtly, standing taller and drawing strength from the newfound clarity gained from all her recent experiences. "Busy? Or maybe you're just avoiding everything you left behind?" He cocked his head, playful like a predator testing the waters before the kill. She glanced at Jay, assessing what direction they might take next. In this moment, every ounce of her struggle loomed around her, erasing doubts and locking into her mind why she needed to be here, to stand firm against those who had undermined her strength. "You think this is a game?" she said, narrowing her eyes at Mark, fueled by confidence, and rage mingling into a singular power. "You don't get to rewrite my past just because you think you can bully me into submission." Mark's eyes darkened, something unsettling flickering within them. "Oh, Sarah, you're still that naive girl in so many ways," he mocked, but there was uncertainty there, too. "But guess what? The rules are changing. I control this game in case you haven't noticed." The air crackled as Tom shifted, ready for a confrontation at any moment. Sarah was acutely aware of how high the stakes had just risen. The armor she had wrapped around herself, courage, growth, newfound reaction, had forged into an actual weapon. "Maybe you did at one point," she began, regret dimming but strength illuminating her voice, "but those days are over." Each word felt like a step toward reclaiming her narrative. "If you think you can intimidate me back into hiding, you're mistaken. You don't own this version of me." His expression faltered for a moment, and she took a step closer, no longer feeling like a pawn on a chessboard. She was the player. "Sarah, this is dangerous territory," Jay warned, his voice low, recognizing the line they tread. "Stay behind me," she said, a surge of resolve propelling her forward. She could feel the eyes of the bar on them prying, watching, a collective breath held in anticipation. "Mark," she continued, defiance coiling tightly within her. "You don't define my worth anymore. You never did. I've stepped into a new chapter of my life, and if you think you can reach out to threaten me, you've underestimated my ability to stand up for myself." Mark's lips pressed into a thin line, searching her face for cracks in the armor she had recently crafted. The conflict danced between fear of losing control and uncertainty about confronting the woman she had become. "You think this is over?" he spat, his words laced with anger. "I don't forget so easily, Sarah. And trust me, you're far from safe. I will never cower before you again, she declared, clarity cutting through the sharp words as they boomeranged. Not now, not ever. The stir of the crowd faded into a murmur, and Sarah stood poised, grounded and fearless. All the confrontations of her past merged into this single moment, allowing her to harness everything she had learned, the pain, the lessons, and the triumphs. As Mark stepped back, visibly rattled, the tension began to dissipate, layered under the rising power of her own acknowledgement. He would have to come to terms with the choices he had made, and she wouldn't he allow his influence to recalibrate her reality. The air shifted as Jay turned to her, respect written cleanly across his face. You're intense, Sarah, he said, a glimmer of admiration glinting beneath the shadows. I'm just beginning, she replied, knowing her journey had morphed from vulnerability into a fierce, independent trajectory. The realization settled within her: this was the transformation. She had conquered fear, substituted vulnerability with bravery, and suddenly, her self-worth was no longer in question. Turning her back to Mark, the uncertainty behind her fell silent. She knew the true victory had been against her own shadow. Yet within, a flicker of anxiety still thrummed. Had she truly cut ties with the past, or would it cascade back into the narrative of her life? But it didn't matter. Here, now, standing alongside Tom and Jay, she felt a burgeoning confidence, a solid, unwavering anchor of strength that promised growth through confrontation. Let us get out of here, she said, turning towards the exit, feeling light and liberated, ready to embrace whatever came next. They flowed out into the fresh night air, the reality that awaited them buzzing with possibilities. Sarah could see the path stretching out ahead, lined with challenges yet to be faced, but her spirit soared in a fresh commitment to redefine who she was and who she would ultimately become. The confrontation had ignited a flame, one that would not flicker out in the shadowy corners of her past. She was stepping into the light of who she craved to be: resilient, bold, and wholly herself. And with each deliberate stride, she knew, this was not merely a closing chapter, but the powerful opening of a book filled with potential, untold stories waiting to be written with confidence, authenticity, and direction. Her past would not dictate her future any longer. She determined the narrative from here on out. So here it stood, at the edge of the dusk, with hope reigniting around every corner. This was simply the beginning. The challenge was present, vibrant, and waiting. And with that, she took a deep breath, ready for whatever awaited her just beyond the horizon. If you enjoyed this empowering story and want more unforgettable narratives that resonate with your journey, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on our next exclusive emotional tales that inspire. Leave a like now to support the channel. Your engagement fuels our ability to continue sharing transformative stories. Comment below your thoughts, reactions, and theories about Sarah's journey. We want to hear from you. And share immediately with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. It's time to spread the inspiration. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful experience.